Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg, and this is Drawing with Fountain Pens. I'm very excited today because we finally hit 2,000 subscribers. I want to thank everybody for watching and following. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please do. It's free, and it's the one way to support the channel. Today, it's sort of in honor of 2,000 subscribers. I have a particularly beautiful pen that I think really fits the theme of this channel, Drawing with Fountain Pens, in that it's part of Pelikan's art collection. Pelikan decided a few years ago that they would celebrate an early period when Pelikan commissioned a poster contest, or a series of poster contests, and the early artists who came up with poster designs, which they put on exhibition, and which were kind of part of the Pelikan brand. It's really at the beginning of the 20th century that companies really begin to focus on making posters and advertising where they might get an artist to create beautiful designs and to celebrate sort of industrial design. At least that's sort of what the claim that Pelikan is making as they inaugurate this series. This is not the first pen in the series, but it's the first one that I could get. Typically, late at night, I found a bargain, and I was able to get this for considerably less. I think you can, the list price is something like around $800, and I think you can get it for something like $620, which is quite expensive, particularly for the M600 Souverain type pen. This is a special edition, but normally the M600 goes somewhere in the $400 price. The M600 was developed by Pelikan in 1985, and at that time it was about the same size as the M400, but a little fancier. And it's only in 1997 that they made it bigger to kind of fit in between the M800, which is bigger than this, and the M400. So this is sort of the middle between those two. And there's an M1000, which is even bigger. But what makes this pen so exciting is that it is a tribute to a not very well-known artist, Rudi Rother, who was a Jugendstil artist, I guess is the way he's described. His work does relate to certain Art Nouveau art of the late 19th century. At the time when he won that poster contest, he was 40 years old. I think that's in 1903, and he doesn't live very long. He only lives into his 40s and dies quite young. And as I say, he's pretty obscure. Probably the most well-known poster that he's done, partially because of this pen, is the poster that he does for Pelikan. And when you get the pen, it comes in a beautiful box, which I'll show you. And the other thing is the material of this pen is quite unusual for the Souverain line. The pen comes in a very elaborate presentation box. It says art collection here, and I'm not a big fan of elaborate boxes, but in this case you're getting a lot of history in with the pen. You get a little version of the poster that gives the pen its name, the Rudi Rother poster that was selected and put on exhibition in the beginning of the 20th century. And I think this is the kind of style that is associated with Art Nouveau, the Jugendstil, the young style. In this particular poster, from what I can tell about his style, you see a kind of flatness to the shapes, which really are very similar to Art Nouveau. This is a poster actually that's not about fountain pens, it's about ink, tinta, which is ink. And I think this is really original, the way in which, and beautiful, the way in which the splatters of the ink create this wonderful background design. And pay attention to the dress, because the dress is what inspires the look of the pen itself. I like that she has her foot on a sort of pile of sheets of paper, and of course here is the big Pelikan, which is the mascot of the whole company. Because keep in mind that Pelikan doesn't just sell fountain pens, it sells ink, it sells paint, it sells all kinds of art supplies. So they have this long history of being associated with artists. And it's also kind of wonderful here. You can see the way in which the bird has used its feet to make stamp ink as if it were a printer. So I love all those elements in this poster. So you have your own little version of this. I suppose you could frame this or put this up on your wall, and then you get a book in here that is rather elaborately done, in which it talks about the history of the art collection and why it is that they're celebrating this, that Fritz Beindorf, who at the time was the owner of the company, was a big art collector and commissioned these posters and had them go on exhibition, and that's part of this history. And then they're celebrating the history of all these wonderful posters that Pelikan has done through the year. And then there is the discussion of the artist, Rudi Rother, and that he was born in 1863. He does this poster when he's 40. Unfortunately, he dies only a few years after that. Did not live very long. And really that whole history, and then the discussion of the pen itself. And it's sort of celebrated on the here, designed to inspire. And one thing that is really wonderful here, actually, is that they discuss what they're calling the Aurora process, which is the way in which this pen is able to have this wonderful luminescence. First, a brass tube is processed, engraved, and given the application of the gouache, that is wafer-thin grooves that achieve the special light reflective hologram effect. And then there's clear lacquered, which is put onto it, and it is also polished, very highly polished. So a lot of work has gone into this pen to make it look so beautiful. And it's so translucent. And finally, there are instructions on how to use the pen. So this is quite elaborate, and there the pen sits in the box, and you pull it out, and you can appreciate just how beautiful this is. I mean, it's kind of just magical. And believe it, I am not one for pens that are fancy schmancy or too, over the top. This is very bright, and it has a lot of bling, as they say, but it is also quite elegant. I love the turquoise and red. I like the translucency of the cap, and it's also translucent here and at the back of the pen. But even though it shines and looks translucent, it is not in the actual body of the pen. That's the effect, the so-called hologram-like effect of the Aurora process. And it has a 14-karat gold nib. This is an extra fine nib. It's a 14-karat gold nib. And you can just see it's just absolutely beautiful. It's a classic Pelikan and one chick up top. Here it's also this translucent turquoise resin. And it's a standard size of an M600. The M600 line was first developed in 1985, and when it first came out, it was the same size as the M400. So the M600 was the same size as the M400, and it's in 1997 that it takes on this size, so that it is smaller than the M800, which was developed in 1987, and a little bigger than this is an M405 or an M400. So it sits in between these two sizes. And I think the M400 line is a bit too small. I think the M600 is very comfortable. I like, my preference is the size of the M800, but this is really good size. Here you see it next to a standard M600, which is a beautiful pen in and of itself. And I like the way the green is similar, a little bit similar to the turquoise of the sort of the base color of the art collection pen. But it sort of then, it's almost like it's on fire. And how just, you can see that in comparison, how it just sort of glows in the light. It's just a beautiful pen. I can't tell you how delighted I am with it. Here it's next to another M600 I have, which is an orange one, which is pretty, but it's not nearly as special as this is. So how does it write? It writes like all Pelikan Souverain pens very, very beautifully. It is an extra fine, which is unusual for me. I tend to find them to be scratchy, but this is a very smooth extra fine, and I'm actually very happy to have it since I have plenty of Pelikan broad pens. And I will do a writing sample. I did a quite large and elaborate painting of tulips, which I think does sort of speak to the spirit of the design in this pen. I had some beautiful yellow parrot tulips that are kind of on fire, the way this pen is on fire. So how does it write? It's Pelikan Art Collection. M600, Rudi Rother. It's an extra fine. And this is Waterman Serenity Blue. This is rhodia paper. Now, it's definitely more like a Western extra fine than it is like a Japanese extra fine. There's a little bit of line variation. You definitely feel that this is a gold nib, I think, in that sense. So it's not a nail. And I'm getting a bit of feedback. It's not super scratchy, but it's not smooth as if it were a broad, or like an M800 medium or broad. So I really love the way this pen looks, and it is a nice writer, a bit more feedback than I usually like.